And so it was pretty convenient that my army of whites were all Patty certified.
That is really convenient. Where'd you find the chain?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Chad, how did you get here?
Yeah, the last time we saw you was in Uyghurworld when the woman in black carried you off.
Well, that's an interesting story. Oh, Bucket, you're all I need in this world.
I love you, Chad.
You better stay away from my man. I'm sorry, what? Was that supposed to make sense?
Well, no, silly, that's not the whole story. There's more. You see...
That was the future?
Right, but there's more. You see... Needless to say, what happened next was...
And be careful with Vicky. I don't want anything to happen to her. She's not perfected yet, okay?
I'm not perfected yet.
And finally... So as you can see, once you're shown all the pieces, it all makes sense.
So you really had sex with Uyghur Chad? And our episode opens with Dolores. Thank goodness, it's been a while. And she's once again talking to Arnold, but then Arnold says something that he wouldn't say, and Dolores corrects him. It's all reminiscent of Ford correcting and refining early Bernard. And then she says she's done this test many times, and she's testing for fidelity, which reminds us of William's test with James Delos.
Well, I'm certainly confused about this. Is she trying to make an Arnold, or just improve Bernard? And why? And how? Is she trying to achieve this based on her interviews with him? With the multiple timelines, I don't even know when this scene is. We all assumed it was 35 years ago because it was Arnold, but now since this is a host recreation of Arnold, it could be whenever.
I have no idea, and to top off this confusion, it might not even be real. You know, I noticed this before, but I didn't think anything of it, but now it seems more significant. These scenes between Dolores and Arnold are filmed in letterbox, and the only other scenes filmed this way this season are in the simulated reality later on this episode. So this scene could actually be taking place in the Cradle Matrix.
Did any of you guys notice that Dolores' dress is totally wet? Did she just walk through a puddle? Is this blood? Is she really turned on? Is that from the flood of the valley? Or Basement 83 cold storage?
Well, it's from none of those if this is a simulated reality. It could just be a clue that this is underwater since the cradle is underwater.
It's simulated metaphorical water on a dress as she talks to a simulated recreation of Arnold in an unknown timeline? Man, my brain hurts.
We then jump to Teddy shunning milk for bullets, which I suppose is a metaphor for choosing murder over chivalry.
You know, Rebus and Walter were able to maintain a healthy love for both milk and murder.
Teddy then goes to the bar and wonders why everyone is wasting time. Dolores asks how many times Teddy came in on that train, and Teddy responds that weak Teddy has been fixed. Dolores then interrogates the dude for the exact location of her father. The guy doesn't know, leading Teddy to shoot him in the head. And all of this new Teddy gives Dolores some pause, while Angela smirks on.
Yeah, I'm not sure why Dolores is showing concern or puzzlement. She's been murdering and torturing innocent people for days, and she made these changes to Teddy herself. He has been acting exactly how she's been acting and how she wants him to act. This should be a total lack of surprise.
Dude, this is like the greyhound catching the felt. Every girlfriend wants to change and improve her boyfriend. Dolores just doesn't know what to do with herself now that she's achieved her goal.
We then get to Stubbs, who has made his way to the Mesa and is sad to see his co-workers dead. Stubbs seems to be the only person in this entire story with sympathy for others.
By the way, what the hell happened to all those humans that Ghost Nation collected? Did Stubbs leave them behind, or did he take them with him somewhere?
Well, with all the religious imagery in Westworld this season, I think they were just raptured.
Anyway, Charlotte shows up and comments that it's been almost a week since the incident, which makes me wonder why this place isn't smelly as hell. Shouldn't all these bodies be massively rotten? If it's been 5 or 6 days, no one would be able to work in these conditions. They'd be gagging and vomiting. So Charlotte somewhat clues Stubbs in on the importance of Abernathy, and Stubbs is annoyed that he was kept out of the loop. Though he completely misses that this highly relates to Teresa's murder the week before. Charlotte then seems to remember Season 1, and... oh, hello, Shade of the Lamp.
I just wanted to mention that Charlotte informed Stubbs on what a bad job he's done heading up security at an amusement park, and that his next performance appraisal is likely to be bad. And now that this has been mentioned, we can forget all about his failure to bring in Dolores, decommission Maeve, piece together that Bernard killed Teresa, and his tendency to go on missions alone.
Charlotte then lets Delos headquarters know that Abernathy has been found, and in another scene of religious imagery, Charlotte decides to stake Abernathy to a chair in a Christ-like fashion.
Yeah, are they just throwing religious imagery at a wall and hoping that something sticks? I mean, what's the point of any of it?
Well, I suppose that Jesus said that through him one is granted eternal life, and the knowledge that's in Abernathy's brain is all about downloading humans into host bodies leading to eternal life. Something like that.
Well, I suppose that makes a lot more sense than all that stuff with Major Craddock.
We then get to Maeve, who seems to have been fighting an army with her katana, even though she has the ability to control her enemies with her mind. But it's in the background that we have the much more interesting plot. Felix, Sylvester, and Lee are collecting arrows, spears, and flags. I have no idea why, but it's probably gonna be awesome!
Maeve eventually stops zoning out, which I imagine she was doing for hours, and then looks over to Akane and has a flashback of her daughter.
What? Maeve has a daughter? I didn't know that!
We then get some more extended mourning of Sakura. Didn't we have enough of that last episode? I mean, Sakura had like 4 lines. I honestly couldn't give fewer fucks. Akane then cuts out Sakura's heart, as if people don't have rib cages.
The crew then returns to Japanese Sweetwater, and we continue with the fascinating story of them collecting arrows, spears, and flags. This is building to something good.
Then some dude that no one cares about comes outside. Who are you?
Well, last episode...
Nope, don't care. But whoever he is, he seems to be a kind soul, as he kept alive the crew for no reason. Musashi wants to fight this guy, and Maeve says some sort of bullshit about choosing fate, even death. And then we are treated to the lowest stakes fight in the history of fights. 2 characters without personalities or meaningful backstories that we only met last episode battle for no impact on the plot. 5 minutes of screen time is dedicated to the build-up, the fight, and the aftermath. Honestly, 5 minutes of a random episode of One Tree Hill would have had more impact.
We then jump to the man in black who is fresh off the Reddit pages as he suspects Emily is a host. Now if only he would start suspecting himself. Now, going against the man in black's theory is the fact that Ghost Nation rescued Emily, but then again, they did try to rescue Maeve this episode, so who knows about that. The crew comes upon a honeypot wagon. Emily is a crack shot, spinning her guns like a badass, but later says she hasn't been to Westworld since she was a kid. So, who knows, maybe she really is a host.
We then catch up with Elsie and Bernard walking along some train tracks towards the mesa for what I imagine is at least a couple days. We've seen Dolores experience at least 1 night since Bernard left her. I guess there must be some more protein bars hidden around the park for Elsie. The 2 pass through the welcome area where they lament the killing of hosts there. I'm not certain why certain hosts are assumed to be harmless like stable hands and these welcomers. Dolores was the supposed harmless rancher's daughter. And those Chinese railroad workers should have been harmless as well, but they were killing people right and left. The welcomers certainly had access to weapons. During a robot uprising, it seems pretty safe to mow them down to me.
Elsie taps into the computer and finds out that the computer's backup system for hosts, called the Cradle, has been actively fighting QA's attempts at regaining control of the system. It's as if the Cradle is conscious, which would help explain all the crazy computer shenanigans with Maeve last season.
We then get back to Maeve's enormous crew of uselessness, wandering the woods. I guess hosts don't sweat because Akane's makeup is still on her face. The 9 of them make it to the lake, and Lee, Felix, and Sylvester find access to the tunnels. And this really shows how poorly designed Shogun World is. This is the closest point to Japanese Sweetwater, and it's only a chute down. There doesn't seem to be any access up. Shogun World is supposed to be the most violent park. How do they replace and maintain the hosts? Does everyone walk for miles to clean the place up? We then get another long mourning scene for Sakura. She has more scenes mourning her than she did lines. There were no fire bowls for Teresa.
Anyway, it's time to go, and then Musashi says he's not going, and then he insults refugees by saying that people shouldn't be cowards and that they should stay and defend their homelands, even when faced with certain death. Yup, man, I totally wish the other guy won that fight. Musashi, the cop-killing, refugee-hating asshole.
And we never found out what happened to his goddamn safe. Well, Musashi being a dick seems to motivate his partner into abandoning him.
And then the fascinating tale of the spears, flags, and arrows seems to continue as we see Armistice carrying a package. Man, I am so pumped about what this is building up to.
By the way, Armistice here feeling sympathy for Akane is absolutely ridiculous. Oh, a mother's pain. You know who else had a mother? Every other person you murdered. You fucking burned a man alive like 2 days ago. But no, now Armistice cares about people.
We then get to Emily and the Man in Black, where the two discuss why she's here. Emily claims that Charlotte called her up and she was cashing in on a free trip to Rajworld. And now she's trying to prevent her father from killing himself. Of course, none of this really makes sense. After the rebellion, Emily would have no reason to think that her father was hanging out in Westworld. Plus, there's that whole mysterious map that she had. Something is definitely not right with her explanation. That or the writers fucked up. Anyway, the two reminisce about the Raj, and the Man in Black thinks that his daughter was scared of the elephants, while Emily insists that she loved them. This is an odd discrepancy, and the second time the Man in Black has misremembered something big. He misremembered his wife's suicide, and now he misremembers the elephants. Perhaps the Man in Black is a host, or Emily is one, or he's just a really shitty father, or the writers fucked up. So Emily tries to get the Man in Black to abandon his mission. He initially agrees, but it's all a ruse, and he leaves Emily behind. With a robot, during a robot uprising no less.
We next have Elsie and Bernard entering the cradle, and the A in the cradle is a 4, so it sounds like crefordle when spoken, because, you know, Ford is in the cradle. So awesome.
So in the cradle, Elsie still doesn't have access, and Bernard remembers that he brought somebody's memories here. And so Bernard wants his brain to be put directly in the cradle to see what's going on. Elsie doesn't really think it's safe, but Bernard insists, claiming that there's no time. I actually don't know why Elsie and Bernard would be in any sort of rush. They were walking slowly along train tracks for 2 days. Bernard's actions seem awfully rash, if not, you know, contrived so that we can have Bernard enter the Matrix. By the way, if Bernard is coming into Sweetwater by train, shouldn't Teddy be on the same train?
We then jump to Stubbs, who's greeting the arrival of some Irish dude named Coughlin. Coughlin's primary function seems to be to insult Stubbs while throwing out a whole bunch of swears. And so I guess he's just like Elsie.
We then get to Maeve arriving in the homestead sector. She comes out of a grave, again showing resurrection, another Jesus reference, as if we haven't had enough of those. And despite having a horribly traumatic memory of Indians killing her in her home, she leaves all of her protection behind. We briefly go to the Man in Black, who's attacked by Ghost Nation, and then we get back to Maeve, who has a flashback of her daughter.
What? Maeve has a daughter? I didn't know that.
And then she has another flashback of her daughter.
What? Maeve has a daughter? I didn't know that.
And then she has another flashback of her daughter.
What?
Shut the fuck up, Uyghur Chad.
Maeve then comes upon her real daughter, and despite having an intelligence that's supposedly off the charts, Maeve didn't see this one coming. There's a new Maeve. Of course there is. And despite having an intelligence that's supposedly off the charts, and despite having a traumatic memory of Ghost Nation killing her, she didn't see this one coming. And so we then get the kidnapping of a small child and Akecheta trying to tell Maeve that he comes in peace. Hector and Armistices then come down shooting, and Lee decides to take the opportunity to make a call to QA, which makes Felix very upset for some reason. I have no idea what Maeve has given Felix to make him so loyal. She has really only killed a bunch of people, both human and host, including his co-workers.
But more importantly, my boy Sylvester's got the package. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's going to be so baller.
We then get back to Dolores and Teddy on the train, and they decide to leave their tech to die, which seems like a bad move. What if they need more programming? Angela then quite easily slides a rusty pin out of the coupler with one finger while the train is moving to separate the cars. First off, the tension of the cars should create quite a bit of friction, making the lifting of this pin near impossible. But second, this is a fantastic way to lose a finger. One unexpected rattle of the train and that finger is gone. But third, this is a Janny coupler that replaced Lincoln pin couplers. They were specifically invented so people didn't have to go between cars to unlink them. See that bar that leads to the coupler? It allows you to safely unlink cars from the side of the train.
Whatever, dude. It's like all the weapon cocking. It's not accurate, but it makes everything look really cool. Anyway, Irish dude is trying to get everything back online. They're able to get the map back up right before seeing the train come in. The train explodes and we cut to Elsie. And she wants to know what Bernard sees inside the Matrix. Of course, I don't know why she's staring at Bernard. He's not even in there. His brain was taken out. Inside the Matrix, Bernard walks past Dolores, and Ford's Greyhound, and then Teddy, and finally we find out that Ford's consciousness is alive in the Matrix. Aw, yeah.
Bye.